How's everybody doing? Good, good. For those who don't know, I'm Josh Sokol. If you haven't tried yet, on the back of your badge, there's a badge game. You should definitely try and play it. It's a blast, a lot of fun. I think you all will really enjoy it. We spend a lot of time doing that, so please give it a shot. And I'll give you a hint that nobody else out there gets. Find John Lascon. Find John Lascon. All right, so winning friends and influencing people in InfoSec. I actually didn't realize that I was speaking now until yesterday. Wade let me know. And I was like, all right, what can I talk about? What's something that's valuable? And I'm not a super technical person when it comes to talks. I like to talk about soft skills. I like to talk about things that are valuable to me that I think other people maybe undervalue or don't hear often enough. And this was a talk I gave about 10 years ago. I did it at T-Risk and at HUSecCon, and it was very well received. And I started thinking about our environment today. I started thinking about politics and the fact that like everybody is just butting heads. Like everywhere you go, when you're on Facebook, I'm seeing it bleeding into LinkedIn, right? Everybody is just butting heads. And I think that this talk is a good talk because it talks about how do we quell that? How do we get things done? How do we talk to people? How do we relate to people, even if their viewpoints are different than us, even if they come from a different place? So, as I mentioned, I'm Josh. I run the security team at National Instruments. I've got some certifications. I also am the guy responsible for your Lascon bags. Hopefully you don't throw them away, you bring them home, use them for your groceries, save the environment, right? So yeah. In the past, I've been told I was difficult to work with. 10 years ago, right? I'm better now. I've been called a dick. Some people who probably were dicks themselves, but different story. Had problems selling my ideas to management, to my peers. I had difficulty selling myself when it came to raises and promotions. I like that they're taking pictures of this. They're like, yeah, proof that Josh was a dick. Thanks, guys. Awesome. I'd even been fired from jobs because I really couldn't communicate effectively with my manager. And that's a problem. If you guys can relate to this talk is for you. It wasn't really for a lack of trying. I tried to be the nice guy, right? I put a smile on my face every day. I tried to be friends with people. I had plenty of people around me that I actually considered friends, people we'd go out to after work. I was a hard worker. I was smart. I put in long hours. I accomplished my personal goals, and I accomplished most of my professional goals, right? So it wasn't that I wasn't getting the work done, and it wasn't that I wasn't being nice. It was that I didn't know how to get myself across. So I started thinking about this, and it's like, why don't people like me? Why can't I get things done? And there were two things that happened that really gave me a wake-up call. The first was a musician named Tish. I used to play in a band. I played in a band for about 6 years, and I'd watched this band at one point in time, and I told her, Tish, I was like, I watched you play. I've watched you play many, many times. She was a singer. And I was like, I could draw a 1 foot by 1 foot box on the floor, and you stand in that box. I was like, the entire show, you will stand in that box. And she's great. She's moving around with her microphone, whatever, but it's in that box. And I said, if you really want people to stand up and take notice, you gotta get out of the box. I mean, literally and metaphorically, right? But you need to do that. And it was probably a year, maybe 2 years later, Tish came to me and she said, Josh, when you told me that, she said, I thought you were a dick. I thought you were arrogant. I thought that you were condescending. I thought you were rude. But she said, I realized something. What I realized is that everybody else was telling me what I wanted to hear, right? They were telling me that you're great, Tish, you're doing a good job, whatever. She said, you're the only one who actually told me something that I needed to hear, right? You're the one who told me something that could have improved. And the realization here was that it wasn't what I was saying, because what I was saying was constructive, or at least it was intended to be constructive. The reality is it wasn't taken that way. And that's all about me and how I was communicating. The other one is my wife recounting what my best friend told her, and I might tell this story later on if we have time. I've got a lot of slides here that I need to whip through, so we'll see about that. But in any case, shortly after that is when I picked up a copy of a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's by a guy named Dale Carnegie. He was a sales guy, but the book literally changed my life. Reading through that book, there are so many things in there that they're things that should have been obvious, but they're not, right? So if you take away anything from this, go read that book. Now, this presentation actually started with our OWASP Austin Security Professionals Happy Hours. I was sitting at a table with Kevin McCoy, who was with Fortify, Dan Hadwiger, who was at Set Solutions at the time, Matt Snyder, who I haven't seen around in a while, but he's over at Dem Group now. And a lot of the content here is based on the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And as I mentioned, typically a sales guy book, but it really is a must-read for everybody. So the things that we'll talk about here are things that are covered in that book. How do we handle people? How to make people like you? How to win people to your way of thinking? Might talk about being a leader, and then time permitting, we might have some example scenarios. So, how do we handle people? He says, if you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive. And that sounds like, duh, right? He said, I've spent the best years of my life giving people the lighter pleasures, helping them have a good time, and all I get is abuse, the existence of the haunted man. Who am I? America's most notorious public enemy, most sinister gang leader who ever shot Chicago. It's Al Capone. Can you believe a guy like Al Capone, a guy who's #1 on the most wanted list, said something like that? Right? Giving people the lighter pleasures. The reality is that few criminals regard themselves as bad men. They're just as human as you and I are, and most of them attempt to explain their actions by some form of reasoning. Maybe fallacious, maybe logical, but they want to justify their antisocial acts, even to themselves. So the thought here is, if criminals don't blame themselves for anything, what about people who you and I come in contact with? Criticism is futile because it puts a person on the defensive and usually makes them strive to justify themselves, right? Anytime you start to critique somebody, immediately they're put on that defensive. They're like, wait, why is he telling me bad things? It's dangerous because it wounds a person's pride, it hurts their sense of importance, and it arouses resentment. And even though I criticized Tish and my best intentions were to make her a better performer, it took 2 years for her to come back to me and go, man, I realized you were trying to do that. It's all about how you say, not what you say. And by criticizing, we don't make changes that last. And we're often incurring that resentment there. And the resentment that criticism engenders can demoralize employees, family members, friends, and oftentimes it may not even correct the situation that you're condemning. So we need to do better. So here's an example that they bring up in the book. There's a safety coordinator for an engineering company, and one of his responsibilities is to make sure that the employees wear their hard hats on the job in the field, right? And when a worker wasn't wearing that hard hat, what do you do? Well, you go up to them and yell at them with a ton of authority, be like, I'm in charge of this place. I make sure that everybody wears their hard hats. It's a regulation, and you have to wear your hard hat. What do you think the result was? The guys put their hard hats on while he was there. And then as soon as that guy left, they're like, screw that guy, right? So let's think about this. What if instead that guy tried a different approach? What if he found some people who weren't wearing their hats and he asked them, what's the problem, guys? Are the hats uncomfortable? Are they make your head itchy? Do they not fit properly? Are they falling off your head, right? And then he said, look, guys, that hard hat is designed to protect you. It's designed to make sure that you go home at night, that your head doesn't get hurt, that you don't have to spend time in the hospital, right? It's there for you, for your help. And I would recommend that you wear this because I care about you, you care about you, your family cares about you. So the result of that approach is an increase in compliance with the regulation, and there's no resentment, there's no emotional upset because he wants to help, right? And people care about themselves, and people care about the people around them. It's no longer confrontational. They said criticisms are like homing pigeons, they always return home. Isn't that the truth, right? The person we're going to correct and condemn is just going to justify themselves, and they're going to be mad at you in return, right? That's where that dick comment came from, right? Do you know somebody who'd like to change and regulate and improve? How about yourself, right? People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. It'd certainly be more profitable than trying to improve others and a lot less dangerous. A few famous quotes here. Confucius said, "Don't complain about the snow on your neighbor's roof when your own doorstep is unclean." Ben Franklin said, "I'll speak ill of no man and speak all the good I know of everybody." Carlyle said, "A great man shows his greatness by the way he treats little men." So the reality here is any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain. Most fools do. We can't be fools, guys. It takes character and self-control to be understanding and forgiving. So the secret of dealing with people is there's only one way to get anybody to do anything. And the only way that I can get you to do anything is by giving you what you want, right? So what are the things that people want? They want health, they want to live, they want food, they want to sleep, they want money and all the things that money can buy, they want life in the hereafter, heaven or whatever, they want sexual gratification, they want the well-being of their children. That's what motivates people, right? We don't work to live, or we don't live to work, we work to live. The one longing, almost as deep and imperious as the desire for food or sleep, which is seldom gratified, is a feeling of importance. The desire makes you want to wear the latest styles, drive the latest cars, talk about your brilliant children, right? You're important. And Freud said that everything you and I do springs from two motives. He was kind of obsessed with sex, right? And the desire to be great. And Dr. John Dewey said that the deepest urge in human nature is the desire to be important. So we need to cater to that. So here's an exercise for you. Think about the last time you had to call customer service or technical support for assistance with something. And the representative was rude and they didn't end up assisting with your issue. What'd you do? Did you bawl them out? Did you ask to speak with their manager? Now think about the last time you called and the representative did everything you needed. Did it in a short amount of time, took care of you, was courteous, polite. What'd you do? Did you just say thank you and hang up? Have you ever asked to speak to their manager in the positive scenario and comment on what an awesome job that person was doing? How do you think that made the employee feel? The last time I did this, and I said, "Hey, can I speak to your manager?" They're like, "Sir, is something wrong?" And I said, "No, you did a great job. Thank you. I'd like to tell your manager that." Okay, let me get him. You get manager faster that way than it's awesome. And how do you think that made the manager feel? Because when you tell the manager, "Dude, you did a great job hiring that person," you give them a promotion, keep them around, right? They get that sense of pride. Charles Schwab said, "In my wide association in life, meeting with many and great people in various parts of the world, I have yet to find the person, however great or exalted in a station, who did not do better work and put forth greater effort under a spirit of approval than he would ever do under a spirit of criticism." Right? If we tell people we appreciate them, if we tell them thank you for the things you're doing, they're going to do a better job. So you're probably thinking right now, you've tried this stuff, it doesn't work. I work with really smart people, they're going to see right through it. And this doesn't work if you're just doing it for the sake of flattery, right? You have to mean it. You have to commit to this as a mindset. Flattery doesn't work with discerning people. It comes off as shallow and selfish and insincere. Appreciation, on the other hand, comes from the heart. It's sincere, it's unselfish, and most people really appreciate it. Who can do this has the whole world with him, and he who cannot walks a lonely way. Think about your favorite fruit, your food. Something so delicious that you beg your significant other to make it for you on special occasions. For me, it's Thanksgiving dinner, it's coming up, right? Now imagine you're going fishing. Are you going to bait the hook with your favorite food or theirs? Am I going to put that Thanksgiving turkey on the line and dangle it in the water? Probably not. Fish probably aren't going to bite that. So why not use the same common sense when we're fishing for people, right? Remember that you're only interested in what you want, and the only way to influence other people is to talk about what they want and show them how to get it. So here's an example. There's a lot of peer pressure on kids to smoke cigarettes. And this example may be a little outdated. Now maybe it's vaping, right? But how do you get them to not do that? Your first option is to preach at them. Tell them why you don't want them to smoke, how mad it'll make you. You're going to take away their car, take away their allowance, right? Second option is to show them that smoking could keep them from doing something productive, from doing something that they love. Maybe it's making the basketball team. Maybe it's winning the 100-yard dash. Whatever it is, which one of those approaches is going to be more effective? The one where you're telling them, Dad says don't smoke because it's going to make you an idiot, right? Or, showing them, here's the things that you want to accomplish. Here's the things that you value. These are going to go away if you start that, right? Those are the things that are meaningful to them. So a few more quotes. Henry Ford said, "If there's any one secret of success, it lies in the ability to get the other person's point of view and see things from that single person's angle as well as from your own." 90% of people ignore this truth 90% of the time. It's not manipulation to get someone to do something only for your benefit and for their detriment, right? Every party, both parties, everybody involved should gain from this negotiation. And the takeaway here is that as security professionals, you may not be in sales, but you're always a salesperson. You may be trying to sell somebody on this particular vulnerability and why we have to fix that. You may be able to try and sell them on why we need to buy that tool or why we need to hire that person, but we're selling something here. And we need to do a good job at it, otherwise the things that we need aren't going to happen. So 3 fundamental techniques in handling people. First, don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Second, give honest and sincere appreciation. And third, arouse in the other person an eager want. Putting this all together, so here's a scenario for me. And again, this is from a number of years ago, but I was doing a lot of scanning for vulnerabilities on hundreds of Unix systems. But they were all systems that I didn't own. They belonged to the Unix team. And I was working with this team to remediate the vulnerabilities. And admittedly, I did a really bad job of conveying how this benefited the Unix team in this email, but I did say how it benefits the company. So I've learned a little bit since then. This is the email. It said, "Ronan, I've begun running qual scans using our internal scanning appliance on web addresses in this range. The goal here is to eventually bring down the overall internal threat level in a similar manner to what I've been able to do with the public-facing IP addresses. Obviously, this is a long-term initiative, but I would like to begin by addressing the highest severity issues first, as these have the potential for the biggest impact if exploited. The following is a list of vulnerabilities that I've identified as Set 5 and on devices belonging to your team. I would be happy to assist with remediation of any of these issues. Please let me know who will be my primary resource for remediation of these vulnerabilities. Thank you." Right? So I'm trying to reach out and say, here's what I need. This is how it's going to benefit you guys. This is how it's going to benefit the company. So they did a really great job at remediating a bunch of vulnerabilities up front, but we also found a bunch of frustrating false positives. You guys all know what those are, right? We run the scan, we got 100 results, and like 5 of them are actually true positives, and the others are because they patched the system, but it doesn't show up with the scan. Yeah, those. So it started up a discussion on how to use authenticated scans to get more actionable results. And they were working with me. I needed to encourage them to keep working with me. So what I did is I sent this letter, and this went to their manager and my manager. So I want to let you guys know that I had a discussion with Ronan and David from the Unix team just a couple weeks ago. about some vulnerabilities found in our production environment by Qualys. In the short time span since, they have successfully remediated all confirmed Sev 3, 4, and 5 vulnerabilities, leaving behind only the low-level and likely false positive vulnerabilities. They've committed to working with me on getting SNMP polling, working on these systems to hopefully alleviate some of the false positives. I'm extremely thankful to them for their quick action and assistance in remediating these vulnerabilities. Wanted to make sure you heard from me on what a great job they've done. A huge step in the right direction of making NI's environment more secure. Thank you. All right? So I'm showing my appreciation, and this is very, very sincere appreciation. I truly appreciate the work that they put into this, and I got this back from the manager. I appreciate your positive feedback. We'll continue to address the issue to get this loop closed on this. This will help us to expand the vulnerability scan to encompass all Unix and Linux platforms. Awesome. I'm getting stuff done. This is great. Manager supports it. Cool. Let's try some more of this. You guys certainly deserve the kudos for your quick action, and want to make sure that every security win is as visible as possible. Hopefully we can use you guys as the positive example that other groups should be following. I'm looking forward to working on the SMP stuff, as I think that the value add there will be large, also in eliminating false positives. Sent Nelson an email follow-up with him on it yesterday, but I guess he's on vacation right now. Hopefully we can knock that one out so that you don't waste your time looking into vulnerabilities that aren't there. Again, I really appreciate your effort on this. I literally couldn't do it without you. Thank you. Right? So, I don't want you to waste your time looking into vulnerabilities that aren't there. That's what he wants, right? That's exactly what he wants here. And showing that sincere appreciation. Awesome. So the result was they continued to work with me. We got those authenticated scan workings, and we had outstanding results. All right, awesome. Win, right? I read a book, and all of a sudden I'm getting all these scan results done. Cool, man. So I sent another email, said, hey, Ronan, this morning David configured SNMP on 3 systems that were slated for retirement, and I ran the call scans against them both with and without authentication. With SNMP, we eliminated 19 confirmed vulnerabilities, 4 potential vulnerabilities, 25 informational vulnerabilities. Below I show which were found versus eliminated. If my math is correct, turning on SNMP authentication equates to about a 68% reduction in the number of vulnerabilities found. This reduction in false positives would certainly help us to be able to focus our energy and attention in the right locations. What are your thoughts on enabling SNMP authentication for these scans on other Unix and Linux systems? Is that a difficult task, or could we just update some configurations and sync it out? Thank you both for your time on this. Right, so now we're working together. I'm showing him the value of what he's already done to help here, and we're basically saying, all right, can we push this a little more? Can we get more value out of this relationship? And the result was later that week, they enabled authenticated scans across all of our dev and test systems. The next release, they enabled authenticated scans on all the production systems. Win-win, right? I get better results because I have authenticated scanning. They get more actionable results with less positives. And then you talk about win-win-win, right? Because in the eyes of management, we're all looking pretty good. Reducing the vulnerabilities, I can show them cool metrics, and I can point to these guys as the example and say, these guys did awesome. Hey, Windows team, let's do this, right? And in fact, the desktop security administrator heard about what I was doing here with the Unix team, and he came to me and was like, hey, how do I get those guys to work with me? I've been trying for years to get them to implement EPO on their systems and wasn't getting results. And so I was able to help him do that. All right, how do we make people like us? It's an age-old question, right? So if you do this, you'll be welcome anywhere. New York Telephone Company made a detailed study of telephone conversations to find out which word is most frequently used. You want to know what that word was? I. 3,900 times in 500 telephone conversations. All right? That's a lot. That's almost 8 times per conversation. So when you see a photograph that you're in, what picture do you look at first? Yours, right? Alfred Adler said, he is the individual who is not interested in his fellow men who has the greatest difficulties in life and provides the greatest injury to others. It is from among such individuals that all human failures spring. So what we learn here is the most important to any person The most important person to any person is themselves. People aren't interested in you. They're not interested in me. They're interested in themselves. Morning, noon, night. Now, certainly there's exceptions, right? And there's people who take time to help other people and things like that. But you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. That's the reality. When we start to talk to other people about things that they like, things that they're interested in, we're going to get to know them a lot faster. If we want to make friends, put ourselves out there to do things for other people. Things that require time, that require energy, unselfishness, thoughtfulness. I received a holiday card from a friend a while back. And it was just a very simple holiday card, but it was handwritten. And it basically said, like, "Dear Josh, thanks for everything you do. I really appreciate your friendship." Super simple, like 2 sentences. That holiday card meant a lot to me. Because what it meant is that he thought about me when he could have been thinking about tons of other things going on. That he took the time out of his day to write something handwritten, to put it in an envelope, to write my address on it, and to mail it to me, right? So that single thing, it probably didn't take him more than a couple minutes, something like that. But people say it's the thought that counts. In this case, it was absolutely the thought that counts. And I thought very highly of him after that point. So if we want to make friends, let's greet people with animation, with enthusiasm, right? Let's be happy to be their friend. So a simple way to make a good first impression. Who would you rather get to know better? Maybe? Which one of those guys? You like those guys? What about that guy? That guy? That guy? That guy? That guy? This guy, right? He looks way nicer. Super friendly, he's got a smile on his face. Last one kind of looks at you longingly, right? The expression one wears on their face is far more important than the clothes one wears on one's back, right? It doesn't matter what we're wearing. If we're smiling, if we're happy, we're friendly, people want to approach us. They want to get to know us. They want to be part of that fun club, right? Actions speak louder than words, and a smile basically says, "I like you. You make me happy. I'm glad to see you." People rarely succeed at anything unless they have fun doing it. So you have to have a good time meeting people if you expect them to have a good time meeting you, right? If you don't feel like smiling while you do, well, make yourself smile, right? If you're alone, force yourself to whistle, hum a tune, sing, act as if you were already happy. Happiness doesn't depend on outward conditions, it depends on what's in here. There's an ancient Chinese proverb that said, "A man without a smiling face must not open a shop." Nobody's going to buy from that dude, right? Walk into the shop and be like, "I want to buy from the meanest looking person here." That would be a weird shop. Maybe like a Halloween shop or something. I don't know. If you don't do this, you're heading for trouble. Anybody know what all these cities have in common? Tanya hid her candy down here. Maybe I can throw some at whoever. Is that okay? Nobody? No guesses? That's hey. Wasn't the right answer, but I mean, it is a correct answer. Good job. I just stole Tanya's candy. Don't tell her. Shh. All right. All these cities were named after people. Every single one of those cities. Austin was named after Stephen F. Austin. Baltimore was named after Lord Baltimore. Every single one of those cities was named after a person. So what's in a name? People are so proud of their names that they strive to perpetuate them at any cost, right? The average person is more interested in their own name than all other names on earth put together. Remember that name, call it easily, and you've paid a subtle and effective compliment, right? Forget it, misspell it, and you've placed yourself at a sharp disadvantage. Most people don't remember names for the simple reason that they don't take the time and the energy necessary to concentrate and repeat and fix that name in their mind. They make excuses for themselves. "I'm too busy. Man, I'm so forgetful. I just hit 40, right? The name sets an individual apart. It's what makes them unique amongst all other people. So if you didn't hear the name distinctly, say, oh man, I'm sorry. I didn't get that name clearly. If it's an unusual name, I have a lot of trouble with Indian names. Say, how's that spelled? Right? And hopefully they'll spell it out for you and you go, oh, okay, got it. During the conversation, take the trouble to repeat the name several times. And try to associate it in your mind with the person's features, their expression, their appearance. You're basically trying to commit to memory, that's Wade Wilson, that's Wade Wilson, that's Wade Wilson, that's Deadpool. Sorry. True story. All right. So, the 6 ways to make people like you. First, become genuinely interested in other people. Smile. Remember that person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. Talk in terms of the other person's interests and make the other person feel important, but you have to be sincere. All right, so how do we win people to our way of thinking? How do we convince management that we need to fix that vulnerability or whatever? First thing is, you can't win an argument. 9 times out of 10, an argument ends with both of the people firmly convinced that they're absolutely right. When we're arguing on Facebook, does anybody win? Right? Trump this, Obama this, doesn't matter. Both sides go away and they're like, man, screw that guy. Suppose you triumph over the other person and you dump so many facts on them that like, fact machine, right? You shoot their argument full of holes, prove that he's an idiot. You're feeling pretty good, man, I talked that guy. You made him feel inferior, you hurt his pride, and he'll probably resent you. A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still, right? If that person didn't buy into that, you didn't change their mind. Ben Franklin said, if you argue and rankle and contradict, you might achieve a victory sometimes, but it'll be an empty victory because you'll never get your opponent's goodwill. So would you rather have an academic, theatrical victory, or would you rather have a person's goodwill? What does the other person you're arguing with want? They want to feel important. So how can they get it? Do they get it by loudly asserting their authority, or by you acknowledging it? I prefer the latter, right? Buddha said, hatred is never ended by hatred, but by love. Don't hate. Misunderstanding is never ended by an argument, but by tact, diplomacy, conciliation, and a sympathetic desire to see the other person's viewpoint. So how do we keep a disagreement from becoming an argument? There's an article titled Bits and Pieces that was published by the Economic Press. And it says, if there's some point that you haven't thought about, be thankful if it's brought to your attention. Perhaps it's your opportunity to be corrected before you make a serious mistake. All right, cool. Maybe I don't know everything. Maybe that thing that person just told me, I didn't realize that. Maybe I can be thankful for it. Hey, I didn't really consider that. Now, our first natural reaction is to be disagreeable, to be defensive. Let's keep calm, control our temper. Give them a chance to talk. Don't interrupt them, let them finish. Don't resist, don't defend, don't debate. Let's listen. Let's hear what they have to say. All right, I've heard you out. So when you've finally heard your opponent out, dwell on the points, the areas that you agree. Let's find some common ground here. If there's areas where I can admit error, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. All right, we're making headway here. Maybe promise to think over their ideas. Man, that's interesting. I should look into that more, right? They might be right. Who knows? Thank them for their interest. Man, I realize we don't see gun control the same way, but I really appreciate that you're interested in this, right? Thanks for your time. Thanks for telling me that stuff. I didn't realize that. Anyone who takes the time to disagree with you is interested in the same things you are, right? Maybe postpone the action. Let's give each other some time to think through and ask ourselves, could they be right? Are they part right? Is there some truth or merit in their argument? Is my reaction one that's going to relieve the problem, or is it just going to relieve some frustration? Will my reaction drive my opponents further away, or will it draw them closer? Am I going to win or lose? What price do I pay if I win? What price do I pay if I lose? Is this difficult situation an opportunity for me? Now, you can tell people they're wrong by a look, by an intonation, by a gesture, right? Just as eloquently as you can in words. And if you tell them they're wrong, do you make them want to agree with you? No. You just struck a direct blow at their intelligence, their judgment, their pride, their self-respect. It arouses opposition, and it makes the listener want to battle with you before you even start. Word to the wise, never start off a conversation with a middle finger. So Alexander Pope said, men must be taught as if you taught them not, and things unknown proposed as things forgot. Interesting. Galileo said, you cannot teach a man anything. You can only help him to find it within himself. All right. So what we're saying here is that somebody has to figure this out for themselves. We can't convince them. We can't yell at them. We have to help them draw that conclusion for themselves. Lord Chesterfield said, be wiser than other people if you can, but don't tell them so. Always seek to enrich yourself. Seek to make yourself smarter. That's cool. But never be the braggart. Never be the person who says, man, I'm smarter than everybody else. Socrates said, one thing only I know, and that's that I know nothing. My wife sometimes tells me, man, I don't know anything about any of this stuff, your security, blah, blah, blah. I go, look, I never worked at a vet's office. You know way more about animals than I do. We all have areas of expertise. We all have experiences that we can draw on. And the reality is, you don't want to trust me to work on your animal when it's sick. You don't even want to trust me for advice. My wife, on the other hand, people call her, right? They don't call her for the InfoSec stuff, though. If a person makes a statement that you think is wrong, maybe even something that you know is wrong, isn't it better to begin by saying, well, look, I thought otherwise, but I may be wrong. Oftentimes I am. My wife tells me I am a lot. And if I'm wrong, I want to be put right. So let's look at the facts. You're never going to get into trouble simply for admitting that you're wrong. It'll stop all argument, and it'll probably inspire your opponent to be just as fair and open-minded as you are. Make him want to admit that he too may be wrong, right? We're drawing common ground. So if you know you're going to be rebuked anyhow, isn't it better to beat the other person to it and do it ourselves? Isn't it easier to listen to self-criticism than to bear condemnation from alien lips? Say about yourself all the derogatory things you know the other person is thinking or wants to say and intends to say, like, hey, I'm a dick, I get it. And say them before that person has a chance to say them. It's kind of funny, after I gave this talk the very first time, I had somebody come up to me and was like, your presentation was right. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, you are a dick. Cool, man. It's up there. It was on the screen. Yeah, I know. Chances are 100 to 1 that a generous, forgiving attitude will be taken and your mistakes are going to be minimized. So, there's a certain degree of satisfaction in having the courage to admit one's errors. It doesn't only clear the air of guilt and defensiveness, but often helps solve the problem created by the error. And any fool can try to defend his or her mistakes. Most fools do. But it raises one above the herd and gives a feeling of nobility and exaltation to admit one's mistakes. sometimes it actually kind of feels good to be like, dude, you were right. I was wrong. And it's a lot more fun to be honest and admit our mistakes than to try and defend yourself. It's just digging the hole further, right? There's an old proverb that says, by fighting, you never get enough, but by yielding, you get more than you expected, right? Woodrow Wilson said, if you come at me with your fist doubled, I think I can promise you that mine will double as fast as yours. But if you come to me and say, let's sit down, let's take counsel together, and if we differ from each other, understand why we differ, just what the points at issue are, we will presently find that we are not so far apart after all, that the points on which we differ are few, and the points on which we agree are many, and that if we only have the patience and the candor and the desire to get together, we'll get together. It's quite the statesman, right? Lincoln said, it's an old true maxim that a drop of honey catches more flies than a gallon of gall. So with men, if you would win a man to your cause, first convince him that you're his friend, sincere friend. Therein is a drop of honey that catches his heart, which, say what you will, is the great high road to his reason. The use of relentless, of gentleness and friendliness is demonstrated day after day by people who have learned that a drop of honey catches more flies than a gallon of gall or a jar of vinegar. Secret of Socrates, in talking with people, don't begin by discussing the things on which you differ. That's how we start the argument. We start by emphasizing and keep emphasizing the things that we agree on. Keep emphasizing, if possible, that we're both striving for the same end, and that your only difference is the method, not the purpose. Get the other person saying yes, yes at the outset. You don't want the other person to be saying no. No response is the most difficult handicap to overcome. When you've said no, your pride of personality demands that you remain consistent with yourself. Well, I said no, I gotta keep saying no, right? Gotta make my point. And you might later feel that the no was ill-advised, but you got your pride to consider. So once having said a thing, you feel like you gotta stick to it, right? How often do you feel this way with kids? You're like, I said no. All right. So it's one of the very greatest importance that a person be started in the affirmative direction. Get them to say yes. The skillful speaker gets at the outset yes responses. And it sets the psychological process of the listeners moving in the affirmative direction. Oh yeah, I said yes to that, I said yes to that. Yeah, cool. It's called the Socratic Method. Most people trying to win others to their way of thinking do too much talking themselves. Let the other people talk themselves out. They know more about their business and their problems than you do. Ask questions. Let them tell you more. Don't interrupt them if you disagree with them. They're not going to pay attention to you while they have all these ideas flowing out. Let them get it out. But be sincere about it. Encourage them to express their ideas fully. And even our friends would much rather talk to us about their achievements than listen to us boast about ours. I don't think we have time for the story, but the lesson here is when our friends excel us, they feel important. But when we excel them, they, or at least some of them, feel inferior and envious. So how do we get cooperation? Don't you have a lot more faith in ideas that you discover for yourself than in ideas that are handed to you on a silver platter? And if so, wouldn't it be bad judgment to try and ram your opinions down the throats of other people? Wouldn't it be wiser to make suggestions and let that other person come to their own conclusion? Ralph Waldo Emerson said, in every work of genius, we recognize our own rejected thoughts. They come back to us with a certain alienated majesty. We don't have to take the credit. They can have the credit. I'd rather have the results. Lao Tse said, the reason why rivers and seas receive the homage of 100 mountain streams is that they keep below them. Thus they're able to reign over all the mountain streams. So the sage, wishing to be above men, putteth himself below them. Wishing to be before them, he put himself behind them. Thus, though his place be above men, they don't feel his weight. Though his place be before them, they don't count it an injury. So, people may be totally wrong, but they're not going to think so. Don't condemn them. Any fool can do that. Try to understand them. There's a reason why they think and act the way that they do. Figure out that reason, and you now know why they're acting the way they do. You know why they are who they are. And try to honestly put yourself in their place. Everyone wants, there's a magic phrase that stops arguments. Eliminates ill feelings, creates goodwill, makes the other person listen attentively. And that's, I don't blame you one iota for feeling as if you do. If I were you, I would undoubtedly feel just as you do. If I were you, right? Because that's true. 3/4 of the people you'll ever meet are hungry and thirsting for sympathy. Give it to them and they'll love you. All people you meet have a high regard for themselves and like to be fine and unselfish in their own estimation. J. Piermont Morgan said, a person usually has 2 reasons for doing a thing, one that sounds good and the real one. So the person himself will think that the real reason, so you don't need to emphasize that. And all of us being idealists at heart like to think of motives that sound good. In order to change people, appeal to the nobler motives. Merely stating a truth isn't enough. The truth has to be made vivid, interesting, and dramatic. Showmanship. Movies do it, TV does it, and if you want attention, you're going to have to do it too. Schwab said, the way to get things done is to stimulate competition. I do not mean in a sordid money-gain way, but in a desire to excel. Desire to excel, a challenge. Throwing down the gauntlet. It's an infallible way of appealing to the people of spirit. Every successful person loves the game, the chance for self-expression, the chance to prove his or her worth, to excel, to win, the feeling of importance. So that's how we win people to our way of thinking. Avoid the argument, show respect for the other person's opinion. You don't tell them they're wrong. If you're wrong, admit it. Be empathetic about it. Begin in a friendly way. Give them saying yes. Let them do the talking. Let them feel like the idea is theirs. Try to honestly see things from their point of view. Be sympathetic to the other person's ideas and desires. Appeal to their nobler motives and dramatize your ideas. And lastly, throw down a challenge. So with that, I think I'm out of time. We're not going to do the scenario, but thank you guys.